Okay, one last little kind of overview video here as we get ready to jump into some of the specifics. Um, this idea of absolute truth is very important, but having it couched and grounded in the reality of love is of the utmost importance. And I think that's probably, as I mentioned before, where we oftentimes struggle and fail in sharing our faith. It's not that the truth is necessarily untruthful. It's just that it's not couched in a very loving presentation. I often say that you can't talk about an issue and disconnect it from a person. Every issue that we consider, hot topic, difficult issues is best seen within the context of a real story and a real person. So, for example, if you're going to talk about, which we will, same-sex attraction, you had better have real people in mind when you're talking about this, because we oftentimes rob the humanity of a topic and an issue by simply, just giving out some sort of statement that we believe is the truth. So therefore, swallow it whole. The truth. There it is. You got it. Now you do with it what you're supposed to. But our job is to love people even if they don't believe the truth that we're presenting to them. And I think that's where we screw up a lot of times when it comes to this faith. It's like, here's my responsibility, here's my job to give you the truth. You're sinning, you're doing this, you're doing that, there it is. Okay, now I've done my job, I told you what the truth is, and now we are irritated and frustrated because they're not following in step with what they now know to be the truth. But my job is honestly to love someone whether they are so inclined to believe the way I believe and to do what I tell them they should do, could do to help better their lives. In other words, I'm with you, period, no matter what, whether you're like me or not, whether you believe as I believe or not. But I don't want, and I think it's important to recognize, anyone to think for any moment that we're going to be less in terms of approaching and giving the truthful stance of the church and her teachings. We're not. We have to stand up for the truth, whether we like it or not, and whether it's convenient or not. And to be honest, we're going to get a lot of opposition because people don't want to really hear the truth sometimes. It's just easier to have things be very vague and ambiguous. But if it's hopefully if it's soaked in love, it'll be a lot more honest in its presentation, more palatable in its possible reception, and in the end, at least, hopefully, will be seen as truly listening, which I think is sorely missed. When Cardinal Ratzinger, Benedict XVI, was discussing and thinking about the Catechism and its impact on the Church, he said that the Catechism was an event, basically, in the history of the Church. And he talked about the opposition that it met. People were not excited about the idea of this catechism. And he said, anything that does not meet with opposition has obviously not dealt at all with the urgent needs of its time. And then he goes on to say something that I think is very powerful. He says, the worst thing that Christianity has experienced in the 20th century has not been open antagonism. The fact that powerful regimes persecute a powerless minority of believers with every means at their disposal is a sign of how much inner strength they attribute to the faith that animates this little flock. What is oppressive, however, is indifference toward Christianity, which is apparently no longer worth a struggle, but is regarded as insignificant, antique, that we can safely let go to ruin or even maintain as a museum piece. In contrast, the Catechism was and is an event that has reached far beyond intra-ecclesial debates to stir secularized society. The Catechism was and is a breach in the soundproof walls of indifference. Faith is once more becoming salt that wounds and heals, a summons that challenges us to take a position. I love that phrase, that challenges us to take a position. And so, I've already said it, I'll say it again. The position that I'm going to articulate and the position I'm giving to you is the position of the church and the scriptures. But I do believe that for us as followers of Christ, it's not just that information, it's that information grounded in love. It's really the reason that we're filled with the Holy Spirit, to have such a heart the heart of God in the things that we say and the things that we do. That was from Gospel Catechesis and Catechism, put out by Ignatius Press. That little section was around page 37. And these are little vignettes, and a lot of this stuff comes from Ratzinger's previously published materials. So we'll probably be jumping a lot more into Ratzinger's material. The last little thought here is simply the role of the church when it comes to reaching into the lives of people that are following Christ and those that are not, is a very beautiful and a powerful role. We see it demonstrated in the variety of ways that we have social justice enacted. So, for example, whether it's Mother Teresa during her time in Calcutta or any of the various religious orders throughout the world, this role and responsibility of being the hands and feet of Christ and caring for people who don't always believe like us is very much in evidence throughout these orders, these diocesan social programs. So it's very common to find Catholics bringing food to people that are hungry, whether they believe what we believe or not, or to bring drink to those that are thirsty, because there's something beautiful about the human person, and treating that person with dignity and respect is imperative. But in addition, I just saw Pope Francis getting ready to meet with those in prison, and our caring for people, whether it's in prison or in the hospitals, burying the dead, caring is what it means to be Christ-like. It's that good Samaritan coming and seeing, the person beat and wounded on the side of the road. Doesn't matter their ethnicity, their background, their sexual orientation. We're going to love them. We're going to care for them, and that's our responsibility. So yes, truth is going to be disseminated. It's going to be given. It's going to be soaked in. We're going to read it. We're going to know it. But it's truth with a very tangible, practical outcome, in the sense that I am so moved and impacted by Jesus Christ that I will willingly allow myself to be inconvenienced as I reach out and care for someone who is so unlike me. And over the years, thanks be to God, I've had the chance to interact with a lot of people who are very different than myself, both morally speaking, ethically speaking. They come from different backgrounds, different stories, different histories. And what I've found over the years is that the more that I'm willing to listen to their journey, their story, the more my story and my journey resonates with them. And together there's something profound and beautiful about two people sharing that journey. In the end, they may not believe the way I believe, but loving them is not a waste of my time. Caring for them is not a waste of my time. So I really wanted this to be important and clear, because I do think that it's very clear from the teachings of the church that yes, we all have this universal need, this universal desire that's within us to be satisfied and to be met. And I believe that many people will try to satisfy that internal desire with wants instead of the need. Well, what's the need? The need is our relationship with Jesus Christ. Our relationship with Jesus Christ is meant to be so personal, so intimate, that it impacts our whole worldview. We've been loved, and while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. He loves us, and that motivates me now to go out and to love those around me, unlike me. In the end, you might not agree with everything that this course is going to say. You might have a different perspective, and I can certainly appreciate that, and I want to hear from you on that. But if we're not careful, our desire to share the truth with people could be doing more harm than good, because truth without that love is certainly not pleasant to be around. So 1 Corinthians chapter 13, soaking in that, thinking about that, very important, and seeing the role that love has in the way that we present the faith. All that to say, it's time to jump into some of the hot topics.